Welcome. Thanks for taking the time to join us today to cover one of the most talked about and a very misunderstood topic as it's so emerging, and that's AI and how it's being used in restaurants and how we envision it being used in restaurants in the near future as well. I'm Brendan Sweeney. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Popmenu. And as I mentioned, we have with us two great forward-thinking, tech-thinking operators in Eric Peterson from Fado Pubs and in Von Dugan from Kapow Noodle Bar. Gentlemen, if you can introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
Hey guys, my name's Eric Peterson. I'm the VP of Operations and a partner for a company called Fado Irish Pub, based out of Atlanta, Georgia. And we've been with Popmenu for a couple of years now and had some great success. I'm happy to share it with you today.
And my name is Von Dugan. I am partner and owner in Kapow Noodle Bar with 2 locations in South Florida. Part of the Subculture Restaurant Group with 12 other brands and multiple concepts down here. And we've also been with Popmenu for a couple of years and have had tremendous success and excited to continue growing with the platform.
Awesome. Thanks both. And thanks again for making the time to join us. And this will be a free-flowing conversation. We want to keep it entertaining as well as informative. And how about a teaser? There's been a lot of talk about AI for the past few years, especially ever since ChatGPT kind of exploded on the scene almost 2 years ago. But let's start with results. This is one of our favorite examples that's emerged over the past few months. Not cherry-picked at all, not a giant restaurant, not a tiny one, very kind of normal profile case for an individual restaurant. They deployed AI using our AI marketing calendar in, February. And what's been really fun is we've been on this journey with AI for a few years, and we'll share a little bit about that. But 6 months ago or so, maybe a little bit longer, we launched this AI marketing calendar product. And we're so excited to talk about the topic because we have real results now from real restaurants. And it's painting a very clear picture that AI actually helps. There's obviously much more to come. We're still very early, but we're super pumped to see the kind of results that restaurants like Ruby's are getting from it. So what we'll cover today, what's accelerating AI adoption among restaurants and how it's being used today. And of course, more real world results like what I just shared. And also some of the myths and what to be aware of. All of these are applicable to any emerging technology. I think we can really very loudly and clearly say this is emerging. It's not perfect yet, but that doesn't mean it's not already a competitive advantage, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't be thinking about and deploying it now. This is reflected in how the industry is thinking about AI. And so almost 8 out of 10 operators are saying, hey, we've implemented it in some way. And usually, in my opinion, what they mean is they're using ChatGPT to write some content, or they are planning on it and very close to it. And hopefully providers like Popmenu and case studies like the ones we're sharing and insights that Eric and Vaughn will share will help you understand really that there's a compelling case to get started now. And why is this booming? Why is this so important? It's really a combination of things. One is this shortage of labor that has really weighed the industry down, even since before COVID started 4 years ago. That means more and more has to be done with less and less of that precious human capital talent. The additional kind of acceleration is coming from what's been one of the most, if not the most competitive restaurant markets of all time over the past year, especially. And so that latter part is reflected in a study that Popmenu did, where consumers that we polled just a few months ago told us they're spending 30% of their food budget on restaurants now, whereas in 2022, they had told us 40% of their budget was going to restaurants. And so shortage of labor and time, more budget conscious consumers, smaller pie, and we'll talk about that pie as well. But all of these are kind of forcing people to say, I have to find ways to do more with less and to compete for what's been a shrinking kind of restaurant dollar. Eric, maybe you can share some of your kind of experiences here and how you've also felt these pressures.
Yeah, for sure. This is probably the most volatile market that the restaurant industry has ever seen, right? To Brendan's point, that sales pie is smaller. We all need to take a bigger bite. And if you're not using, some sort of tech and data and analytics to drive and re-engineer your business, you're already at a competitive disadvantage. Over probably the last 12 months, I've used more data and analytics than I did in the previous 12 years. Why? Because it was what was required of me. I'm consistently rethinking and re-engineering my business for today's consumer and for today's market, as opposed to what we were looking at in 2019, which seems like a lifetime ago. One of the things that Brendan talked about was this idea of your workforce and finding good people is bordering on impossible. We deployed the AI marketing tool inside of Fado, and I was a skeptic, I have to admit. At the front side of it, I was a total skeptic. It's not going to sound like us. It's not going to be like us. It's going to sound like a robot. What are we doing here? And then, we deployed it, and we found out that the 4-day process that we would take for content curation turned into 2 hours. And you know what else was on the backside of that? Better content. So not only was I able to deliver better content, but I was doing it with less people. And that's what everything's going to be like moving forward, is how do I get more work done with less people?
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And Vaughn, in talking to you ahead of this call, I loved hearing that you got an unexpected benefit from coming on with Popmenu, and maybe we were taking on more than you expected, and you were able to consolidate your tools some. Maybe you can share a little bit of your insights there.
Yeah, I'd like to think that I'm extremely on the more tech forward side of things, but almost to a fault. We're adding additional things to the tech stack on a regular basis, almost to the point of overwhelming the team with all of these shiny objects. So when we signed on with Popmenu, I think what I wasn't expecting, I originally signed on just for the flexibility and the nimbleness of like the website side of things, and didn't realize all the amazing features that were kind of right there inside the platform. So as we started using it more and more, we realized how many valuable tools were there, which ended up allowing us to start dropping some things out of that tech stack. So we've kind of, that's a huge monthly expense hitting the balance sheet. To Eric's point, like we're just trying to do a lot more with less these days. And when you see all these subscriptions and they start adding up just as big as that tech stack itself. So it allowed us to really get more nimble, get lean, stay within one platform. No one likes kind of logging in and out of like clunky platforms all the time. So it really helped us streamline that side of the operation as well.
Great. Well, let's jump right in here on AI. So how restaurants plan to use AI? Hey, it's no surprise one of the biggest challenges that restaurants face is staying engaged with their audience and communicating out what's new, special, different about them, reasons to come in. And usually this comes down to two things. One is restaurants saying, I don't have time. And two, it's them saying, I don't know what to say. And so from building marketing calendars and copywriting to understanding customers better, these are all ways that restaurants are finding value in AI now. And I also think they should be very, very encouraging. If you're doing it now, you should be doubling down. If you're not doing it yet, you should definitely start to get familiar with it, because just like any other tool, it does take time and it does take engagement for it to really work for you. So creating content, automating that marketing outreach to guests, and gathering data on guest preferences are three areas where we're going to dive into here. And we'll start with Kapow. And Vaughn, you do a great job of not only capturing your right to contact guests, but also automating personalized messages that have very high open rates. So can you share a little bit about your approach and how you've seen such success with email?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I have to give credit to your team. We had like a lot of us, we had outside agencies that we were working with. And when you see this as one part of the platform, we were kind of a little shy to get, really deep involved with the email component of it. But once our team kind of got familiar with it, they started using it and realized how easy it was to use, and B, how effective the data we started getting back. So we come from an old school world of open rates. Open rates are great, but at the end of the day, we've got to get much better engaging these people and making sure that we're actually talking to them in a way that makes sense, makes them feel like we're actually talking to them, making things more personalized. And Popmenu's platform allows you to do that. So we've just really, really tinkered with the data that's come back every single time we send something out, and also seeing obviously how that resonates and reflects within the store and an ROI component as well. It's really surprising. And again, going back to your team, like your team has helped us go back in and kind of calibrate and refocus some of the messaging. They've been really great at suggesting other ideas that have been successful across some of the other clients that you have on board. And that, I think, really recently helped us just really drill down and get really, really good at using the data that you guys provide us and doing a better job at contacting our guests in a very meaningful way.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And appreciate the kudos to the team for sure. And just to highlight a few things that were said here. One is you started with an agency. One of the big things we've seen at Popmenu over our 7.5 years in business and really helping restaurants do marketing is that all of you have been sold by an agency or by a consultant or someone that your marketing has to be this incredibly complex, like incredibly tone reflective, like kind of Madison Avenue type messaging. It is just not true. We just see over and over, it can and should be way simpler than that. And really the two keys are not so much the format of the email and how perfectly, do the visuals match up with the feel of your restaurant, et cetera. It's consistency and it's personalization, but consistency is the more important thing. Staying in front of them with food pictures, with reviews, with very simple pieces of content that aren't hard to generate is extremely powerful. Now you layer in personalization, and that's how you get open rates like this. And look, I don't expect all restaurateurs to care about open rates. The truth is there is a big funnel, that people go through when they're in the consumer buying cycle. Open rate is just one of those signals along that kind of continuum. But if they don't open the message, they can't see the message. They don't see the message, they don't click on it. The reason these open rates are so high is because of consistency and because of personalization. That is something that Popmenu definitely helps you do because we have data that no one else has on your diners before they dine. But an average click-through rate of 3.5%, like MailChimp tells us, the average open rate is around 20%. Average click-through rate is 1% or under. And with these automated personalized emails, and the big power of automation is the consistency plus the personalization, and that's how you get results like this, which will lead to more butts and seats in the store and more online ordering. And so,
and Brendan, to that, when we had a traditional hosted solution and we used MailChimp, we were breaking our arm, patting ourselves on the back. We had a 30% open rate, and we consistently leverage a 60% open rate with Popmenu as well.
Yeah, I have to double down on that as well. And I have to say, I think we spent the better part of 10 years collecting 10,000 contacts. And I think within the couple of years that we've been with you guys, we've doubled our contact list too. So that's something that was happening, not because of any work we were doing. It was like the platform was working for us. So it was pretty unique to see that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, back to simplicity, what we see is a flywheel starts happening. And so that is getting right to contact guests, getting personalization points on them, and then the system does the rest, and it will just keep you in front of them in an automated, consistent, personalized way. And how has our journey evolved? I mean, I like to think of this as just good context for anyone to have who's either doing AI or is considering it for their restaurants, that it's not as new as you might think it is. And so this has been our journey. For example, at Popmenu, we collect first-party reviews on behalf of our clients from their guests. And so they're messaging directly into the system, hey, I just had this curry crawfish dish. Well, we were initially just doing basic things like using AI to say, hey, you should approve this so that it shows up on your site, or you should reply to this. That then, as ChatGPT and generative tools have come on board, has made it easier for us to evolve into automated emails and text. And so then you're the editor instead of the author of the content, which is a no-brainer. Phone answering, we've been doing for over 3 years. It's been a big part of our AI strategy, and it's been a big piece of what's really helped restaurants that are partnered with Popmenu. And then that fed into automated social posts. That's really when ChatGPT was widely available, and we started utilizing it to create whole posts for our clients. This was one of the most rapidly adopted features we've ever had because, again, you become the editor instead of the author, and that makes things so much easier, and we embedded it directly in. That has led us to the next step, which is, going to continue to evolve and should. And the great thing, I know a technology has real potential even when it's far from perfect, and even when it's kind of the top of the first inning, it's already delivering value when you know that you still have a whole game to be played. And so all of our experience with AI and with marketing, with email, with texting, with social posting, led us to create this AI marketing calendar tool. We listened to restaurants, we heard you, and we turned around and gave you this product, which basically says, hey, we have all this content on your restaurant that's inside your website, inside your platform. We can build a waterfall of logic that decides what to promote when. Then we can bounce that off the generative tools like ChatGPT to get the content written. And then we can present you with an entire month's calendar of content. then you are able to come in ahead of the month kicking off and say, hey, this doesn't sound, worded perfectly like I would like it. This text maybe would be better on a Tuesday, et cetera. You can come in and be the editor in chief instead of the author. And so this is the product that is unlocking such results and unlocking so much potential and really minimizing the time that restaurants have to interact with it. And really for us has solidified just how valuable AI can and will be for restaurants. So maybe Eric, you can kick off. You've been on this for a few months now. Maybe you can kick off kind of what your experiences have been with it. And maybe also, not maybe, but please also contrast this with other services you were using before.
Yeah, so it's as you stated earlier, right? It's easier to edit than to create. Again, we spent a lot of time and brain damage trying to create all of this content. And to be quite honest with you, on the backside of it, it wasn't as good as it needed to be. So we've also we have other concepts as well, and we've been engaged with a third-party agency. And as a representative example, we had a hiccup this weekend, right? They posted something for a frosé. Guys, we don't have a frosé. That's kind of a problem. So, I've got every GM in my company emailing me, texting me, showing me the post, sending me the post. Everybody's got the post, the frosé, we don't have the frosé. And it turned into this whole, groundswell. Well, that doesn't happen with AI marketing because it's actually generating content from your website. So it has to sit resident on your website. And what's the interesting thing too is when we first adopted the AI marketing piece, the third-party agency that we were using, their claim to fame, or what they kind of leveraged, was they had the perfect cadence for how they communicated to guests so that it wasn't overbearing, but it was in front of them on a consistent basis. When we took on the AI marketing piece, it was the exact same cadence. So obviously Popmenu had done their due diligence. They had found out what the best practices were in the industry. It was 2 texts, it was 4 emails, and it was 13 social posts that was available to you on a monthly basis. And so, yeah, it's been great. And again, it was a 4-day process that turned into 2 hours. I've got less people doing more work and doing better work. We're going to get rid of the third-party agency, and we're going to leverage the entire company on AI marketing.
But are you going to add frosé? Because it sounds like
we might have to at this point, Brendan. We might have to. But yeah, man, just so you guys know, again, I've said this a couple of times. I think the AI marketing tool might be the greatest asset that we've deployed that creates ROI both on time and on energy. So it's been a godsend for us. And again, we're going to deploy it across all brands and all locations.
Awesome. And love hearing that. And here we can see the data. Like these are the impressions tripling over time. And like you said, you were doing a good job to start with before this. And then this just shows how valuable and how impactful it is to have such consistency and such personalization going out.
Yeah, obviously we started it in March, and in December, January, and February, it was like breaking rocks to get that content out, And then look at the results. It speaks for itself.
And what are impressions? I mean, this is just someone seeing an email, a text, a social post. This actually doesn't cover all of the impressions that you get from it, including the website, things like that. But we just see in our data over and over and over, you increase impressions, you increase sales. It's not directly one-to-one, and it's not going to happen the same day or the same week, but there is a very, very strong correlation, and it makes sense, right? Like you're just staying more top of mind, more consistently with the people who already asked to be kept up to date about you.
Yeah, 100%. You got to maintain that relationship, right?
You do. And I have some of my favorite locals around me who aren't as purposeful about sharing their latest chef special, their latest offer, their latest event. And they're behind the people who are staying in front of me. And hey, in a perfect world, hospitality is like the good old days. It's not so incumbent upon you to really put yourself out there, but that's the old days. And the truth is, if you are not staying in front of, if you're not putting these messages out, you can definitely count on your competition doing it, and they're going to stay top of mind, even if you have a superior product.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note too, like we're just now getting into that component of the platform, and we're really aggressively looking at budgeting more money towards the photography because we realize that the AI piece is so good, and people, I don't want to say they don't care as much, but like they're looking at shiny objects like the pictures. So if we can kind of get out of having that need for that third party agency, writing content, paying copywriters, trying to be creative with snarky messages or whatever it may be, you don't have to spend all your money there, and you can start letting the system do the work, focusing a little more on the photography piece, which that gets everyone's attention. So you probably see even better results as well. It's great.
To double down on Vaughn's thing, we're doing the same thing, right? Every time we do seasonal cocktails, we have a photo shoot. We used to never do that in the past. Yeah, and remember, like for us, 83% of our web traffic is mobile. And when you're scrolling, man, those pictures are so important. And having gaps in pictures, I'm not a fan of. So we make sure that we cover up every single one of those. And we spend the time, energy, money, and resource to make sure that we have quality photos.
Great points from both of you. And we have one of the things that the AI marketing calendar has spurred is this kind of realization that, your content that you should contribute is what you should normally be doing as a matter of course of business. You're adding new items, you're adding new chef's menus, you're adding specials, and you're having corresponding visuals for those. The system should do the rest, and more over time, it will definitely do the rest. Almost as important as the chart going up and to the right, the showing that the impressions really work. This is one of our clients, Antonucci's, that temporarily paused their marketing in March. And you can see that it definitely had a direct impact on the revenue driven through those marketing channels. And so not only do we see, this is the reverse case, right? And this is one of the charts for me that confirmed how important it is to turn something like this on and to have it on and to be consistent in your messaging. And so that's a real big learning for us that just confirms the value for sure. Another big piece of marketing is being omni-channel. It's getting the same message out, whether it's email, whether it's your site, whether it's your Google profile, whether it's texting, whether it's social. The truth is, no one is consuming everything, and no one is consuming every channel all the time. And you don't know when are you going to hit them, when are you going to miss them. So one of the great things about AI, and this will develop more and more over time, we're developing some tooling around this to make it just absolutely dead simple for campaigns to be delivered across channels. AI really helps with this too, because it can respect the limitations of any given channel, but it can also emphasize the kind of upside of any given channel. So pushing out a campaign, really where you're going to get something like this marketing calendar product that Popmenu has, where that's handling the regular blocking and tackling. Then you can do a better job of kind of storytelling and putting more emphasis on, maybe a national chicken day or a national boxty day for Irish pubs, what have you. But you pick the goal, you pick the intent, and then the AI will help you distribute that across channels basically automatically. And so another important aspect of how it helps so much, because creating an email versus creating a text versus creating a social post, that does take some time. And so streamlining that is just another example of how it's really going to help you get your message across all channels.
Yeah, if there's anything we need right now, it's efficiencies, right?
Yes, absolutely. We have a question. Do we see any common risks or challenges when it comes to depending on AI for content engagement? Yes, and it's not that different than it is relying on an agency. And so you heard Eric's experience where, the agency just missed, and they just happened to, insert a piece of content that shouldn't have been there, and there wasn't a check and balance where you could preview it before it went out. So one of the things is, since we've delivered this tool, our biggest challenge is getting people to approve the content, which is not, surprising because all of you guys are so busy as restaurant operators, but it's also, it's just the one button that needs to be clicked. But that one button is really important, because while we're not going to insert a frosé if you're an Irish pub and you don't have frosé, we could potentially turn on and promote a dish that maybe it's no longer available, but maybe you haven't turned it off in your POS. And so what I think of is, the opportunity and the danger is if you don't keep your data up to date, it's going to come out in AI marketing in some form at some time. It's just inevitable because the data is there. But the good news is you can focus on keeping that data in your POS, in your website, in your menus up to date. And then everything else should take care of itself more and more as time goes on. And I think kind of the counter to that question is also, the risks are that you pump out stuff that doesn't make sense. But that mostly has to do with is your data up to date. The other side of it is, though, because the basics are handled, like I mentioned, now you have the opportunity to go and do some more interesting storytelling that can really differentiate you. And so that could be taking a video of the chef creating a new dish. That could be taking a video of, the crowd going crazy watching Euros or Copa America, soccer, and then pushing that out. And so what I like to think is you're automating things that are very basic blocking and tackling. And that allows the limited human capital that you have to deploy to go and do these bigger things that help you differentiate more and help you compete better. So there's always two sides of the coin, and we are early with this. But I think everything points to, hey, it's better to turn it on. And just the last thing I'll say about that is, as much as it sucked that you had a message go out about Froze, it's also like not the end of the world, right? And one thing I think people fear sending out imperfect content. Trust me, you know this as a consumer because you do it too. That last email from the restaurant, it either compelled you or it didn't. And unless it was really, really bad, it's not going to turn you off from that restaurant. If you send a dish and you no longer have it, if you send an imperfect email, that's not the end of the world. You still have tomorrow and you still have the next day. It is kind of, I try to get restaurateurs to see the restaurant business kind of like software and kind of like the internet, in that it's not a frozen kind of done, manufactured product. You get to keep going. And I guess my whole, it's a long rant to say, okay, if the messages aren't always perfect all the time and people will forgive you, but what's not okay is never staying in front of, and never messaging or hardly ever messaging or it not being personalized.
Yeah, and I would just kind of say, add to that as far as what the other challenges are. I mean, it's like having humans doing certain tasks in the restaurant. If you don't work with them, if you don't train them, the AI is no different. You just have to give it a little love and kind of cater it to talk like you, act like you, think like you a little bit. And I think over time, it's impressive how, for those that haven't used it, it's really impressive how it really truly learns and it gets to know our customers better than we do.
Awesome. And yeah, we're still very, very early. We have some super exciting stuff to come on this front.
I'm adding Frozes to the menu, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Keep it going, boys. That's good.
Switching gears a little bit, that was all about the marketing. Now, another big aspect that's really top of mind, because restaurants are just one of those businesses people still have to call to get the information they want, because there are so many different things they could be asking about. Using AI for calls, for reservations, for orders is something that a lot of people are doing, or they're taking a hard look at it. And we've been doing phone answering for over 3 years now, and it might be one of the clearest returns on investment that we've seen people get, because the time your team saves and the opportunities you don't lose that you otherwise would have lost to someone not answering the phone just become really like clear as day. And so Vaughn's been using answering for a while now. You've answered 90,000 calls with it, which is amazing. You offer a special discount for a customer's first order. You capture reservations. You have a lot of great things going on here. If you can share your experience with this technology with the audience, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think like Eric said, I was a skeptic at first. I mean, especially with something as impersonal feeling as, an AI generated quote unquote bot answering the phone, that's like one of the first impressions you get to make. So we were a little nervous, but we realized in like the labor pool that we were dealing with competing against all the other restaurants that are opening, increased labor, all that fun stuff, it really for us was a kind of a necessary move that we had to make. And we weren't sure what it was going to do or if it was going to work for us. We immediately, the next day noticed that we didn't have hosts, raising their finger like I'll be with you in a minute, to all the guests sitting around the host stand. That's something that we all hate when we go out to eat. So our front of the house staff, our host staff, was able to provide, much more personalized attention to the people that were important, which are the ones that were sitting in front of us. With that being said, the more we taught the system, the more data we entered, the more questions that we answered on behalf of the system so they could do the job for us. It was amazing. Like the phone just stopped ringing, even though our guests, a few of them had a little adoption issue in the beginning, but all in all, it's worked tremendously for the restaurant. It's helped us decrease labor, increase guest engagement, provide better hospitality. But people are we found that, again, the data that you guys provide us gives us these details. We found that most of the people, I'd say, I guess for us, it's probably over 60 or 70%, are finding answers to the simple questions that they need. So they really don't need to take up the time of our hosts and answering the phone. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to lie, I'm over 50 and I'm typically someone that would probably hit like, I want to speak to an operator. I don't. I really just want my question answered. I don't need to speak to anybody. I just want to link to the reservation. I want to link to the menu. You know, do you welcome dogs? Are you vet owned? Can I make reservations for your karaoke room? So for us, you know, the more data we put into the system, the more we found our calls. And again, we follow that data now like religiously every week. Like, why are people calling the restaurant? Are we answering the questions that they have? And it's just really been impressive to see not only the engagement piece, but, you know, sales. We're generating sales from it, which is fantastic.
No, I love hearing all that. And it's honestly the experience that the vast majority of our customers have shared as they've kind of turned this on. The early hesitation, the number one hesitation that makes the most sense is, I don't want a robot answering my phone.
For sure.
And we've all called Comcast, and I've had a bunch of experiences lately. They keep coming to bury my cable and they cut it. It's crazy. Yeah. But what infuriates me the most is calling and having to deal with that auto attendant and the buttons, and it's just forcing me down paths I don't want to go down, et cetera. This is very conversational and it's very natural feeling. And this is the benefit of kind of modern AI. And I would say, if you have that fear of how will someone feel about your hospitality if a robot answers, I would flip that and say, how much better can your hospitality be on-prem if your people get to deal with people in person and not, you know, like you said, hey, 1 second, one of our earliest clients on this said they went from their hosts constantly having, you know, like everyone who would come up to get their table that they made a reservation for would constantly see the top of their head to start with as they're taking a reservation. Once they turned on answering and the reservations were handled by themselves, it was just the opportunity for the host to give the great start of hospitality on-prem. And so you have to weigh those things out. But I think in general, people want the information. They prefer a human to give it to them. They prefer to give them the information perfectly. But the truth is, those things are very, very hard to do all the time. And automation just makes it so you don't miss any of those really critical revenue opportunities.
Yeah, to win in this day and age, you kind of have to, you know, it can't be transactional. It has to be experiential, right? And so, you know, with the AI phone answering service, it helps with that. Sorry, Vaughn, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we always talk about, you know, what's the easiest way to increase sales, and it's by just trying to drive those check averages up from the people that are already sitting in your restaurant. For us, we realized and identified that it's easier to provide hospitality to the people that are standing there in person, like with their wallet out, like, hey, I'm here to spend some money with you, like, and no one wants to get that, like, I'll be with you in a second, you know, it's the worst part. So it's really helped with the heavy lifting there.
So one of the things, you know, one of our strategic imperatives last year was trying to grow private party sales. So we were always worried that the hostess was getting that private party inquiry, right, and writing it down, and it's, you know, it's a 50 top on this date with this phone number, and that thing disappears. About 6 to 8% of our inquiries that come in, again, to Vaughn's point about being able to track all that data, is private party submissions, and we have seen our inbound leads go up as we've adopted the AI answering service. So there's a bunch of different variables to it that you've got to think through. But to Vaughn's point, the more information you pump into it, the more information you get out.
I've got to credit your team again, and I don't want to sound like I'm pushing an ad for you guys, but it really has helped us grow this big scary thing that's kind of you know, it is a little intimidating to people in the beginning. But just tweaking the welcome message alone, I worked with, I believe it was Vanessa, she worked with me, or Veronica, sorry. She just tweaked the opening message for us that basically said, you know, don't worry, if you need to talk to somebody in person, we've got that too. And it was just letting them know, like, hey, we're still here for you, we're still a human, but we're just trying to help do a better job and get your questions answered without having to talk to somebody. So even those little tweaks have been such a big improvement for us.
That's awesome to hear. And again, it's what we hear from, you know, the vast majority of our clients that engage with this product. And I think there is also surprise at how much it helps. And then the realization of how much time you were wasting on the phone before. And there's a bunch of other stuff too, just transcribing the voicemails, making sure everybody who's in the team on the site gets those, categorizing the voicemails, whether it's like a private dining or a reservation or catering or what have you. All of those little things are such improvements on an actual human answering the phone that it's worth it to have, you know, a non-human answering. All right, going on, and I'm loving the discussion here. Business operations, and so analyzing business performance, managing inventory and purchases, scheduling staff. I think it's clear we can see this is the way forward. And a lot of these topics are where restaurants have the most data. And so wherever the data is where the AI will be kind of the most impactful, the fastest. But there's definitely a lot to come, and more areas are going to expand with AI. Analyzing the business performance is a huge one. Eric mentioned it. One of the things we really know about the last year is that it became very, very difficult to continue to pass on the increasing cost of labor and goods to the consumer. Like, we just hit a wall, we can't do it anymore. And so we have to find margin within what's already happening at the restaurant. And so it's funny, as a restaurant tech person who's been going to the National Restaurant Show for years and many events and talking to, every major partner in the business, things like that. The biggest thing that's been talked about in all that time is, we need data to make better decisions. And people have been trying that and getting it, but really the automation is what's going to act upon it, because it takes a lot of resource, takes a lot of thinking, takes a lot of expertise to truly go in and, for instance, engineer a menu, to make sure that your most profitable dishes are featured and sell the best. But I do think engaging it now sets you up to be able to do things like analyze your business performance, focus on the dishes that are most profitable, drop the dishes that are the least profitable, understand when something that might look unprofitable is actually a lost leader and it's bringing people in. And so these are ways that I'm excited about AI helping your businesses going forward. I do think these are deeper, issues that'll take a little bit longer to unfold. But the sooner you start, the sooner you'll be able to take advantage of kind of these, business operation enhancements and knowing what to do next. And so I mean, I just mentioned some of that, but one thing is, whatever technology you use, whether it's Popmenu or whether it's, anything else in your stack, it has become more and more important to really understand what's going on. We've invested a ton of resource over the last 2 years into delivering ROI data so that our clients know, what are you getting out of Popmenu? How are we impacting your business? And, to me, it's very important to say, hey, every tech vendor should be giving you this in some way, form, or fashion, and you should be engaging it in some way, form, or fashion. And I do think that this is where you're going to find points of margin that will be very, very difficult or impossible to find, by raising prices or cutting costs otherwise. Eric, Vaughn, you guys are very data oriented. Maybe you can share a little bit about how you've used data to understand what to do next.
Yeah, so all of those traditional methodologies of pricing, portion, portfolio, promotion, we've kind of pulled all those levers as hard as we can. So the next phase of that is you have to re-engineer your business, and you have to re-engineer your message, and you have to re-engineer your menu so that you can be more profitable. There has to be data and analytics that go into it. You just can't put your finger in the wind and say, hey, I think this is a great item, we should really promote it. If you're not using data and analytics, you're already at a competitive disadvantage.
Yeah, well said. And I'll just double down on, we live in sunny Florida, and we work really hard. And there's tools that we would love to have that we can use from the beach, while we're sipping on a margarita. But I think having these tools at your fingertips in an easy to digest format, for me, is the most important thing. I know a lot of people that are kind of new to tech or still have questions about whether they want to adopt it. A lot of it is how is the interface of the platform? How is the user experience? Is it easy to digest, easy to see? And most importantly, is it easy to take action on? So giving me data is one thing, but having the tools to follow up and do something with that data, I think, is even more important.
100% agree. And I do think that's the future of the business. Is the data keeps getting richer. It shouldn't be just third-party platforms having that. It's going to be in your tools. It's going to be in your POS. It's going to be in your loyalty. It's going to be in your platforms like Popmenu. And that's where the real power is going to come from. Awesome. So we're coming to the end. Just a little bit more. Some popular myths. And I think, again, any emerging technology, you're going to have rightful hesitation. You're going to have preconceived notions about it. We've been working in AI for a few years now, and we can bust a few of these myths. So one is that guests won't like it. The truth is, the vast majority of people are okay with automation, and they understand the need for it. The main thing is it elevating their hospitality experience? And if you're using the right way, it absolutely is. And the truth is, we're used to engaging AI in so many different ways now, whether it's Siri or whether it's Google or whether it's all kinds of different things. And it's going to continue just because we don't have enough humans to do so many of these tasks. And the humans that we do have, we want them to be doing higher level things than telling us, is a four top available, or where do I park, when I come to watch the game on Saturday. Guests like it. Myth, AI is complex. It's complex for the people who are executing it in the background, but for you, it should get easier and easier and easier. Like, it actually shouldn't be, it'll never be more complex than it is now. And it's already, you've heard Eric and Vaughn talk about it, it's already taking a lot off your plate and making things easier. And the tools are designed to be user friendly. Some of it, you're just talking to it like it's another person. And as time goes on, it's going to be more in that direction. But hopefully some of the case studies and anecdotes we've shared today show you it's not complex at all to engage it right now. And then it's expensive. We're still early here. And even though OpenAI is making a ton of money in aggregate, the truth is to get one message done by them is incredibly cheap compared to the alternative. I think that's the way to think about the cost too. One is an investment and what am I getting out of it? But two is also, what's the alternative? And so Eric described, an agency that he was working with. You might have a full-time person. There's no form of a person executing marketing for you that is less expensive than AI doing it. That should be obvious, but I do think people can have a hesitate. You can see that OpenAI is doing $3.5 billion or whatever in revenue and say, wow, that must be expensive. On an individual basis, it's very cheap, and it allows us to make the tools very inexpensive, that you would buy from us. These are, at this point, false objections. If you're worried about any of those, you should go on and try it and see what it's like. The one pro tip I will tell you is, once ChatGPT came out, all of these companies exploded that are just basic wrappers on ChatGPT. And so they might take a prompt and do something like build a very simple website, what have you. Just know that, like any other technology, it is all about the input. That's what's going to determine the quality output. And so, it sounds great. I've used the Taco Tuesday example a billion times now, but it makes a lot of sense that if you have 100 restaurants, send ChatGPT a request to create a Taco Tuesday email. Yes, they will vary a bit, just because that's how a natural language system works, but they're not going to vary that much. And over time, as we get inundated with more and more marketing that's very, based on generic prompts, it's going to become obvious to the user. It's probably going to become obvious to filters and things like that. Know that the quality of the prompt is what's going to determine the quality of the output. And so with Popmenu, for example, we have your entire restaurant's data in the platform, whether it's your location and hours or your events or your menu or your prices or any of that. And we have a ton of information about the guests that are browsing your menu, that are ordering from you, that are interacting with your menu, that are leaving reviews. The combination of those two data sets makes for very, very dialed in, personalized prompts. And that makes for very, very dialed in, personalized messaging. I shared some of Vaughn's results there. What we see is Popmenu, and we send hundreds of millions of emails a year, over 100 billion texts. There's a lot of information going out. The more personalized it is, the more performant it is. The more likely people are to open it, the more likely people are to interact with it. And so this is a long way of saying beware of generic tools. It's not beware, it's know that they're only going to provide limited value if you are not able to put in a great amount of data to truly differentiate the message and truly differentiate yourself. And here's what I love is, this question was what to operators was, what do you believe AI can help you with? The beautiful thing here is we're seeing this actually in play, actually helping, actually all the way across the board. And so I think the best thing you can take from this is the thing people hope will happen from AI are happening, and they're happening now. And it's companies like Popmenu that are really pushing this and really sharing the results with you that will help you see, hey, this does work, and it isn't that hard to do, and it isn't that expensive to do relative to the alternatives. So I couldn't be more bullish. I mean, we're all sick of hearing about it in the news, especially in the tech world. Like we hear about it even more than, just general consumers. And it does sound like a hype cycle and it sounds overhyped, but the truth is when it's really practically applied and smartly applied, it's working on all these fronts right now. So Eric, Vaughn, any last insights or reactions to this before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think you've heard Vaughn and myself both say the same thing, which we were skeptics about this, right? But what I can tell you is when we made the decision 12 months ago, because things were so volatile, to kind of untether ourselves from an antiquated past and kind of embrace this visionary future, and doing that with partners like Popmenu with AI marketing and AI phone answering, It was enlightening, and it's made our jobs easier. I've got less people doing more work, and it's better work. And I know that everybody that's on this webinar right now could use that tomorrow. So, it's hard. We're not pioneers by any stretch of the imagination, but we try to be early adopters. But, once we've adopted this thing, now I'm all in. I keep adding on and bolting on more suites and more options because I see the value it has for my business. So, sometimes you just got to take that leap of faith. And again, hopefully what, Vaughn and I have prescribed for you today sounds good and makes sense.
Yeah, I almost can't even, that was so well said, and just want to echo the same exact sentiment. Like, we just want to make our lives easier and make our staff's jobs easier and make our guest experience better. At the end of the day, I wanted a better website that I could make edits to without having to call somebody, that had better SEO, like, search optimization. And here I am a couple years later with this amazing suite of tools that I've been able to eliminate all my monthly subscriptions with all these third-party apps. And it's just, I'm learning, I just learned from this webinar, from what they're doing at Fado. And so it's, I'm not even using the suite to its fullest. And I also think I'm fairly tech forward, but now I'm more excited to get, to dive into some of the other pieces that we're not using.
Awesome to hear, and great insights from both of you. And I do think anyone on this call can look at both Eric and Vaughn and say, I get it, and I can do that too. And you can also say it's also very, very early, and the sooner I start, the more of a competitive advantage I have. And so happy to take questions now. We already have a few, so if anyone wants to submit, I'll start answering these. I'll take the easier one first. So how can you include this in your plans if you're just getting started in your new restaurant project? The number one thing you can do is gather as much data as you can on your guests or potential guests. And so if you can, like, let's say you're starting with a landing page, start capturing people's information, and if you can, like, a big part of how Popmenu gets this great data on our guests that makes for very personalized messaging is we have this menu experience that puts dishes first, where people can interact with dishes. They can say, I had this, I loved it. They can say, remind me to try this. They can comment, they can review, they can share. That data is great grist for the mill when it comes to automation. So number one, take every list you have. I know every restaurant has this, like, stack of comment cards at the back that you never actually gave away that $25 free lunch for, or what have you. Maybe you have lists from reservation systems, or create a landing page, etc., where you get to start capturing people's right to contact and then capturing anything you can personalization data wise. So if you have a prelim menu and you can let them interact with it, for instance, which you could through Popmenu, it's all about getting that base of data going. And then when you hit the ground running and you're giving personalized messages from the start, which we know are more performant, each one of these little steps gives you so much more of an advantage. So that was an easy one. Another one from Jonathan: is there any concern regarding data privacy as it applies to restaurants, like the concerns people have? It feels like tech art, where confidential proprietary data could potentially be misused elsewhere out of your control. Yeah, there's concern, but I think what you're seeing from OpenAI, especially since they're at the forefront of this kind of generated content, is they're already doing deals with content owners. They're already responding to that concern. They just signed a deal with, I forgot what news publication, but it's starting to be recognized, it's starting to be handled. And the truth is, the kind of communications we're doing as restaurants, very simple. They're not going to drop a whole, section of an Eminem song into a email about grits or whatever. I don't know where these examples are coming from, but I wouldn't be too concerned with it right now. But I am encouraged that there's already a lot in that direction to say, hey, we can't just profit off of all this content that's out there, whether it's on Reddit or whether it's on, whatever news site. And so I think the providers themselves of the generative tools are the ones who are taking that on. And I do think it'll eventually be regulated as well. But I think the concerns should be very, very limited. Now, also, I want to point out that with Popmenu, you are approving, you have the capability to approve any message before it goes out. You can refresh it, you can edit it, you can delete it. And so as long as there's that layer of being able to approve it, that also helps protect you. Next one from Chris Betts: going based on the current slideshow and regarding Popmenu's technology helping restaurants reduce errors and increase revenue, Can you share a specific case study where your platform reduced order inaccuracies and led to a measurable increase in sales? Definitely led to a measurable increase in sales. There's no way the communication is going to reduce actual errors in ordering. That's actually all happening on-prem. What we're not going to do is communicate about dishes that aren't live in your system. And so the only times the system is going to send a message out about a dish is when it's live. The only time it's going to be in there out of error is when it hasn't been updated by the restaurant. So the system's never going to react on your data in a way that's creating inaccuracy, if that makes sense. Okay, so if there are no more questions, we will wrap up, and we'd love for you to get a demo and go deeper and see more about what Vaughn and Eric shared, what I shared. Obviously, this is my company. I'm one of the founders. I want you to try it. I want you to love it. It's great that you hear from people who are actually doing it. They're not paid endorsers. They're fantastic and generous in sharing their time and sharing their experiences, and we can't thank them enough for that. But for me, I mean, we started this company because we care about restaurants, and we thought that third-party providers back in the day would have been the discovery providers like Yelp and TripAdvisor. And then later, when ordering became so big, it's all the third-party ordering channels. Our thing has always been, you should have first-party tools and not just be relying upon third-party platforms that don't have your best interests in mind. That's how we started. That's how we've continued. The number one thing that gets us excited is when people see real business impact from our products. And we're super excited about AI because it's just been the clearest impact that we can see, both in saving you time and in growing your revenue. Get a demo, see what it really does, see how it works with restaurants that might be similar to yours. Ask a bunch of questions, and I promise you it's not going to be a hardcore headlock, pressure close. We're here to help. And I know everyone says that. We pride ourselves on being partners. We're not going to force it down your throat, but that's the best way to really get to see what it really does and if it's something you should put into your tech stack. All right, with that, we'll close out. And again, Eric, Vaughn, thank you so much for your time and sharing your anecdotes and your successes. And thanks for everyone taking your time out on this afternoon to learn more about AI. I hope it's been insightful and mildly entertaining. We kept it to a minimum, Eric. We didn't get too wild.
That's good. It's good. I think we stayed focused there. That was good.
I feel very grown up. So thanks again, everybody. Take care. All the best.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.